Hello friends, welcome to our Checkmate Architecture channel. We are continuing our chess studies from where we left off. In today's study, we will talk about castling and its rules. What is castling? How to do castling? What are the situations that prevent us from castling? Let's start. One of the things we need to remember before we start studying castling and its rules is how the king moves. We talked about in our previous studies that the king moves only one step. Even though he is the king of the country, he can move only one step, either to the left or to the right, to the neighboring squares around him, until those squares are safe. The other thing we need to remember is the movement of the castle. If we remember, the castle was moving straight, vertically or vertically, horizontally. But if there is an obstacle, he cannot jump over this obstacle. Now we can start studying castling and its rules. It is a special move between the king and the rook. In other words, we can call it the dance of the rook and the rook. While castling, the king approaches the rook, and the rook walks around and comes next to him. If we pay attention, there are two square spaces between the king and the rook. On the other side, there is 3 square spaces between the king and the rook. Then the red rook is close to the rook, and the rook is far from the green rook. Let's call it rook, because there is 3 units of space in between here, and on the other side there is 2 units of space. We can castle both with the close rook and the far rook. First we touch the king, and move the king not one way towards the rook. We approach 2 steps. Normally we know that the king would only move 1 step. If the king moves 2 steps towards the castle, Isak means we are castling. We approached 2 steps towards the castle, and the rook went around and came next to him. This is castling. Now let's do it with the far rook. We know how to castling. Normally we do 1 step. The king was going, but while castling, we will take +1, that is 2 steps closer to the rook, which means that we are 2 steps closer to the king, which means we are castling. So we brought the king 2 steps closer to the rook, and the rook walked around and came next to him. We talked about the Shah. First of all, we know that the king can normally move 1 step. While castling, he moved 2 steps, so we got the chance to move more with the king. The rook cannot jump over the king's crosses, but when we castling, the rook can jump over the king and come next to him. Normally, the rook cannot jump over the pieces. Our advantage is that the rook gets the chance to jump over the pieces. We know that we can only make 1 move while playing chess. We cannot say, I played with a pawn, or I want to play one more time, and play with a second piece. We have to move a single piece, but when castling, we first approach the king, and then move the second piece. When we go around the castle and castling, we move the king away from the center, where the war will get heated. Our king is now safer and happier. Another advantage of the rock for us is that when we castling, our friends can say, I am in the castle center battle, and help us control the center better. Also, now let's do a long castling. When we do a long castling, I say that I am in the castle central war. The castling we do to the far castle is called short. There is a detail here that I want you to pay attention to. In one of them, the king comes right next to the rook. In the other one, it goes right next to it. The king's movement here is important. The important thing is that he took 2 steps towards the castle and walked around the castle. That is to say, when friends are doing a short castling or a long castling, the king will move 2 steps. This is longer than this. He will not say, let's move 3 steps. In both cases, it will be white's turn and it will be white's turn. He wants to castling. He wanted to castle with his close rook. He cannot take 2 steps towards the castle and castling. because the runway is not available. That is, there is an obstacle between the king and the rook. Friends, in this case. So, when castling, hold both the king and the rook at the same time. It does not mean that we will do it quickly. While castling, we will hold the king first, and taking the king 2 steps towards the rook means I am castling. After releasing the king, we can take the rook and bring it next to him while playing chess. Sometimes 2 pieces are held at once. When castling, he holds both the king and the rook with one hand, rook with his hand. Now, let's look at Black King. Black King wants to castle White's made a long castling. He said to Black King, I want a castling long too. The distance between the castle and the castle is empty. Then the Black King wanted to approach the other castle. How many steps do we take? 1 plus 1. That is, 2 steps towards the castle. And the castle walked around and came to the side. That's how the blacks complete the run. The Black King is also happy. See you in our next video. Let's not forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye.